Brunch culture.
We want to talk about faith. We want to talk about politics. We want to talk about race. We want to talk about pop culture. Literally, everything is up for discussion, and that's what brunch culture is about. It's about a thing. Feel real good. Wave your hands in the air and lick 2 shots in the air.
Brunch culture. Brunch culture. Brunch culture. Brunch culture.
She's Lisa V.
And he's Randall Keith.
And this is another week of Brunch Culture, the weekly show where everything is up for discussion.
Yes, it is. And, you know, we talked about Tyrese last week. We gave him a whole main dish.
Main dish.
There were some things that came out. The charges were dropped on him for him. And I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe he didn't do it. But then we saw that he was saying that Jada Pinkett and Will Smith loaned him $5 million.
Which was bizarre.
Yes.
Really bizarre.
To stay off social media, which he announced on social media after they had apparently told him to stay off.
The irony.
Yes.
They paid you and you're not listening, but okay.
And then the boy who said, you know, we should stop bothering Tyrese, that boy who gave that little speech.
Yeah, the little kid.
Yeah, he was like, he was going to pay his tuition. And everybody's like, but you broke. What?
You're paying his tuition, and you said your friends just gave you $5 million because your legal fees were so high that you couldn't keep up with them. So your friends gave you $5 million, but now you finna pay somebody else tuition.
Yes, yeah, it's bizarre. But then Will and Jada's rep said they don't know what he's talking about. And I said, you know what? I can't. I was like drained. Like, this has already been a draining week for me for other reasons, but this was just like, you know, why? I don't understand.
He wants attention. I think, because, you know, last week we were talking about it, and we were trying to give him, like, a chance, the benefit of the doubt. Like, we went in, but then we were also trying to be like, you know what? There could be possibly something else going on. But honestly, after this stunt, it's like, even if it's something else going on, oh boy wants it to be something else going on. Like, you really doing this. Did you see the video of him crying twerking about his chef and twerking? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't know.
You're doing this because you want to get people talking. You want people to talk about you. You want to be like out there and in there so that when you do something, it's like, oh, well, I can get support. It really is like, you know, I want to be famous by any means necessary. I want to be relevant by any means necessary. I want to keep people, you know, talking about me so that I can just feel relevant. Like, it's.
Yeah. And it's crazy. His ex-wife, Norma, says that he missed the 2 times to be like, to actually engage with his daughter. But they had to be monitored. But he didn't come for the 2. Like, and I'm like, you just cried to I want to see my daughter. I haven't seen her in 2 months. If that was the case, the 2 times, whether they're monitored or not, you would have saw her. Like, you're flying across the world to somewhere. He went to Africa, Dubai, say he need to clear his mind, which is fine. But if you have the opportunity to see your daughter you're crying about, why not see her?
Yeah. Honestly, so when I found out that, I laughed probably for 2 seconds when I found out it was a lie. And then I was just like, I'm annoyed. I'm tired. Because dude is trolling us all. He really is. And you don't. So this is because it's frustrating. It really is frustrating. So there's a lot of things that I'm kind of like, there's certain things I'm like, you shouldn't play with, right? Mm-hmm. You shouldn't bring nobody into this whole sob story about what's going on between you and your child, because there are actual fathers that are out here that are doing the right things that can't see their child because, you know, somebody's really like trying to just be evil and vindictive and stuff like that. And so when somebody puts you into that place and kind of gives you consideration, because it's like, yo, maybe this is you. Mm-hmm. And then you start to make up all these lies and you're doing stuff obviously just to get people to continue to watch. It's kind of like, yo, you kind of sick, bruh. Like, you're crying wolf. It's like you're crying wolf, and this is not something that you should be crying wolf about. And then you're lying about, because, oh, my friends gave me $5 million. And what was interesting is when they said $5 million, I was like, I mean, are the legal fees that much for you? Like,
Yeah, I was
5
just like,
million?
how did legal fees break you that much when it's only been
5
a few
million?
months?
Yeah.
Jeez. And it should, don't you have a lawyer on retainer maybe because you're a celebrity? I don't know.
5 million? Like, that's a lot, you know? That's a whole lot. So,
Yeah, because he just said it started September 11th. So it hadn't even been a full 2 months in court. I'm like, what kind of attorney you got?
yeah.
He must have had some other things going on. I don't know. But apparently he's
Crazy. That's the other thing that's going on. Dude is certifiably, like, he has a problem for real.
Yeah,
And it's not
and
even.
I knew he was crazy. Like, I stopped following Tyrese like over a year ago because it was just, he was doing too much, especially when he got that sprinter. I don't know if you followed him, but every day he would talk about how immaculate his sprinter was, and he just kept going on and on. And he was like, I'm picking up this celebrity in the sprinter. And I was just like, something is wrong with you, dude, because nobody does that. And I knew from then that he wasn't, like, everything wasn't there. And now it's just like an extreme.
Yeah. His whole deep, because I've never, I think I said that last week. I started to follow him with the whole, well, I started to pay attention to him. I don't want to say follow him. I don't think I've ever really followed him on any social media outlet, but I started to pay more attention to him when the whole, like, him having these deep quotes came out. And I was like, well, you know, I mean, it works for somebody. But I never really thought, I've always admired his story. I always thought it was dope that he came from nothing to make something of himself and to be, you know, successful. And he just seemed very aware of those things and, like, his duty to give back. And so I always thought that was dope. But now it's like, all right, bruh. All right. I'm good. I'm all the way good on Tyrese.
Like, we don't want any more. I wish he would, like, they would just delete his social media accounts.
We need a new champion,
just
like the girl that deleted Donald Trump's Twitter for that hour.
Yes.
We need somebody else. Let's just go to Tyree's social media and cancel it all. I think it's good.
Well, apparently we need Donald Trump to continue tweeting so he can change, so the people that's getting elected can shift. Because I think his tweets are helping Democrats, apparently.
It's making people realize how bad it is.
And turnout is at a record high, I believe, for was it Tuesdays in New Jersey and Virginia?
Yeah, so Tuesday's election, actually just kind of across the board, a lot of Democrats won just across the country as a whole. We saw a lot of minorities. There's a lot of first time African American mayors. There was actually the first openly trans woman that was elected to a city council. I forget where it said. I'm actually trying to pull this up so I can make sure I'm acknowledging these people right. But it was just like an overall just dope turnout. Virginia, thankfully, Virginia actually turned out blue in the governor's race, which was freaking credible to me. I thought it was pretty dope.
I heard that the Republican candidate was race baiting with his ads. Was that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he basically kind of took the whole Trump approach, but he didn't align himself with the Donald Trump, like, specifically. So there was no, like, hey, come out and support me. But he basically did, like, the same thing. His ads were very much so kind of, let's focus on this type of, you know, we have people that are coming in from the South. We need to secure our borders. You know, we have rapists and people that are coming in to kill people, and Black Lives Matter is a hate group. All of that kind of stuff. He came with that type of rhetoric, and he thought it was going to work, and luckily it didn't work. And it's comforting to some degree, but what to me, and we see happen a lot of times with politics, is that, like, we'll see an extreme, or we'll get so frustrated with the situation now that we blame, somebody doesn't like the president, they blame local politics and local government on the president, and so they vote the opposite. And so for me, it's still a bit of a lapse in, like, true understanding, because don't vote against him don't vote against Ed. I think it's Gillespie, or I don't even know how to say it. But don't vote against him because you are trying to make a statement to Donald Trump. Like, literally, let's really realize that there's a problem in this presidential administration, and then there's also specific problems with him as well. He's using these same types of the same type of rhetoric. It's very like non-inclusive. It's not progressive, and even if you still maintain conservative values, which is so frustrating to me to some degree, is that like this idea of conservatism is really now, to me, is equivalent to all of like everything that is very like racist and just not there. And it's like, you can be conservative in some way and not be that. And that's what you should be showing. Like, what is it that you're conservative about? Be very specific about it. If that's your thing. It's not my thing, but if that's your thing, I feel like, and I've said this before, like, I feel like there's a space in a lane for both. And while I can completely disagree with you, I still think that you should be able to have a certain space, but there's certain levels of like ignorance that you shouldn't accept even as a conservative. Like this whole idea of that, like we have to make America great again, or bring back, quote unquote, the American way. And then you start thinking like, so what is the American way? What has it historically been? It has been very white. It has been very, non-considerate of people that aren't white and Christian. And it's like, that's a problem. Like nobody should be trying to say like, oh, let's bring this back to America. Like everybody should have a problem with this. So thankfully, I'm kudos to New Jersey. Kudos to Virginia, kudos to all of the minorities that have found a space and a voice and have won an election, that's actually made a statement that, we aren't going to accept this type of Trump rhetoric. But what also I want to make sure that for me, it's like, it's important that we challenge ourselves to do is to not just do it as a knee jerk reaction to what happens with the president. And the only reason I say that is because this is how we got a Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Like people
just
are
going from one extreme to the other.
Exactly. You're looking at like something as being like, oh, well, I disagree with this person. I disagree with this president. So let's just try the other party. And it's like, no, we haven't listened to what they're saying. Everybody was so frustrated or like disappointed, quote unquote, with, oh, whoa, I don't like this, and the Obama administration did this, and Obamacare is bad, and yada yada yada. And then you kind of just allowed for a Donald Trump to come in, and now when he specifically does something or says something that offends you, then people are mad. I was actually talking to a colleague of mine, and they were saying like they had a problem. They gave Donald Trump a chance, and they were like, I voted for him, and I thought that this was, he was going to be a good guy because they were both flawed candidates. But then when he said something that like specifically offended them based on like their heritage, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I just can't believe that he would be so insensitive to any group of people. And it's like, but bruh, he's been doing this the entire time.
He's been
like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you aren't listening. Like you're not seeing what's going on. You're just thinking that, well, I'm Republican or I'm conservative, and so this is going to be better than this Democratic reign, because this Democratic administration, they were going to take away our job. They were going to take away my job, and they're going to make me pay more taxes. And then it's like, but you never paid attention to what this other person was capable of doing and has actually been setting the stage to do the entire time. Like, get out of here, yo.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think people have to not pendulum swing in order for us to have an effective government.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought that up. This week, something happened that I didn't even know Meek Mill was in danger of going to prison.
Yeah, he's been on probation.
So I knew I had heard that he was on probation, but I didn't know that he was like, I read it, and I haven't been keeping up with what's going on. But I was like, Meek Mill going to prison? Like, I saw people like giving like celebrities like encouraging messages, and I was like, when did that happen? Like, what's going on? So I was just like, oh wow. And then they told me why he was going back and how much time he was getting, and I was just like, that seems a bit rough.
Yeah.
And extreme. And apparently they said it's something like going on with the judge and her, like trying to get him to make a deal with her friend or something, and leave Rock Nation.
Yeah, so it's actually this story, just because I've heard so many conflicting things, read some like things that's like, well, is it this or is it that? You know, it's real tough because so my friends and I had a conversation about, you know, do you think that his sentence was too rough, and do you think like he knew better, so he apparently violated his probation 4 times. And
oh wow, I thought it was just like 2.
Yeah, they say he violated his probation like 4 times. His probation being like a curfew. He's supposed to be in by a certain curfew. He's not supposed to go outside of the city limits, which he did. And he had marijuana. He tested positive for like marijuana, well, quote unquote drugs, which is marijuana. And for me, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. But so he violated his probation 4 times. So it's kind of like the thing of, you know, is it bad? Like, is the judge wrong for sentencing him to prison, to 2 to 4 years of prison, of which he probably is going to, everything that I've heard is said that like he's probably going to serve at least 50% of that. And so the reason they say he was sentenced, I think, to 4 years, but they say 2 to 4 years because he probably will do like 2 years. And so for me, I'm conflicted too, because I never want to see, I feel like we have enough people in prison. I don't want to see anybody else go to prison. Like, I just don't. It's just annoying. I feel like there's some other way. But what also is a bit kind of annoying too is that sometimes I feel like, you know, probation is a little, you kind of got to be squeaky clean. And the reality is like, a person being squeaky clean in some regards is like, you're setting them up for failure. Like, you know, telling somebody that they make their life and their living by traveling, being out, doing shows, you know, being a part of the social scene and partying, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like an advocate for, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not an advocate for like Meek Mill. It's just like a model citizen. He actually does a lot of annoying stuff to me. Like what he did with that homeless guy, like making a homeless guy like do push-ups to get $20, I thought was disgusting and it's really stupid. And like him and his friends are recording it and laughing at it. Like that's just real dumb, bro. So by no means am I trying to say, like be like a old Meek Mill sympathizer, but I feel like we have to be realistic and realize that in the context of how he makes his living and his money, and it's not just him, but he's also employing other people. He's taking care of families. He has like certain responsibilities. The likelihood of thinking that he is going to be squeaky clean is kind of stupid. Like, I feel like you're setting this dude up for failure.
Yeah. And Remy Ma talked about that because she was like, she still has since she's still on probation, I think till 2019, she said, she was talking about it on the Breakfast Club, that she still has a curfew. I think it's like 11:40 or something like that every night. And she was like, the system is set up to put you back in because it's like what you're saying. It's hard to meet those standards. And as soon as you fall below it, you're going back to prison. So,
yeah. And it's not there's no type of context that's giving it to him. And I've heard people say like, oh, well, you know, that's our problem as a society. We want celebrities to be above the law. And I'm like, I'm not saying this because he's a celebrity. I would think even if he wasn't a celebrity, but he made his living, you know, by being out. And sometimes that means being out past a certain time. Because they say his curfew was something like 8:00 or something. Like, come on.
Oh, that's not doable.
Like, that's
for his job. He's going to have to just do something else.
Yeah. And so it's like those types of things, like that's not, we're setting you up to fail. And so while one can say like, yo, he disobeyed the law. So, you know, he knew what the rules were and he broke the rules. But for me, it's kind of like, how many other times are we seeing other people break the rules and get a pass, right? How many other times, especially when you tell me that one of his one of his offenses or violations was that he had marijuana in his system. I'm sorry, and you know, maybe I'm way
They
too
gonna have
liberal.
to. They gonna have to put Congress, half of Congress in prison.
I'm because it's like, yo, like, guys, at what point in time do we realize, and it's so frustrating to me also to hear people kind of, well, it's still drug, it's still illegal, but it's like, yo, like, there are a lot of things that are quote unquote illegal that people participate in, and for the most part the general society understands that they participate in, but they don't ever get checked. Nobody comes in and makes them, you know, take a drug test or really monitors them. So of course the people that are always being monitored are gonna be more susceptible to it, and people that aren't. And while you can say like, oh well, that's life, and you know it is what it is, you should just accept it and move accordingly. Yeah, we could say that, but then we also have to at some point in time kind of push back and be like, but this isn't fair, yo. Like, this isn't fair. Like, there whole businesses that are started and being started to actually like capitalize and on marijuana, and those are not, by and large, I think there's not a lot of like minority companies. These are like a lot of white companies that are starting and that are doing this, and like minorities can't even get access to that type of, into that business to benefit off of it. So we have a bunch of minorities, specifically black people, that are in prison for drugs, quote unquote, and it's marijuana. And and simultaneously, you also have white businesses that are benefiting, profiting on the fact that this is a thing, and nobody is in, like, they get to make money off of it, but none of them going to jail. Like, it's just not, come on. So this whole Meek Mill thing is real crazy. It's confusing. Not confusing, but just kind of uncomfortable. It's conflicting, because I feel like, yeah, I do believe that people have to be taught a lesson. I do believe that you should take responsibility for your actions. How bees and ever. I feel like we have to give context to a situation. And then hearing stuff about, like, you know, the judge asking Meek Mill to do a certain type of song or do some sort of deal, and him refusing to do it, and her being like, suit yourself, and apparently the two of them having like a history with each other in general. That whole thing is like, she should have not even been, she shouldn't have been on this case. Like, that whole thing just in general just makes it really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think what this reminds us of is that we need criminal justice reform. Because, I mean, some of these things are the mandatory minimums that judges are required to give for certain offenses.
Right.
And they don't have leeway, especially with Jeff Sessions in there, kind of tightening the reins on the mandatory minimum. So it's kind of like, you know, they don't even have the leeway to be considerate of situations,
right,
because of the mandates by our attorney general. So it's just a reminder that we still have to push and advocate for criminal justice reform, which it seems impossible with the administration we're dealing with. So it's just one of those things, that it's frustrating.
We have a lot of work to do, and it's unfortunate to hear. I get so annoyed when I hear us kind of just like, oh, well, he did wrong, so he just needs to pay the crime. He needs to do the time. And it's kind of like, guys, like, and maybe I'm being, and I can accept, I've been criticized of being like overly empathetic, and I can accept that. And the only reason I accept that, because I'm like, well, I want to have the conversation to hear what you have to say that will potentially help me see how, you know, I need to really understand the other side. So I'm open to hearing that. But to me, it's a bit, I feel like we act very like black and white. And another reason I really have this problem is, I remember growing up, and I feel like growing up in the South, we're always taught that things are black and white. Like, life is just black and white. You're either right or you're wrong. You're right or you're wrong. And then just kind of life experiences and going different places, and you start to realize that, well, right and wrong is kind of a very subjective concept depending on this person's or these people's thoughts and ideas and opinions. And so something that, like, growing up and you thought that you taught that we were given the DARE program, and we were taught that, you know, drugs are a no-no and it's oh so bad and it's horrible. But I'll never forget reading Steve Jobs' autobiography and him accrediting and attributing his ability to think up the MacBook and the iMac and the MacBook and the iPhone, and he attributes a lot of that to him doing LSD and being able to think outside, and saying like one of the things that drugs, doing like recreational drugs during the time that he did it, is that it allowed him to think outside of this box and kind of to be in another realm and to explore other possibilities besides like this very rigid education that he was taught. And then he started talking about how he dropped out of school and he would only attend the classes that he wanted to, that he was interested in, just so he can get a part of it, and then would like go and do some drugs and think up something else. And it's like, wait, hold on. I thought this was horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought this was so bad. And I'm like, yo, I can't. No, I'm just not. This is horrible. We can't celebrate one person for their greatness and genius, and they say, oh, well, a lot of that comes from drugs. And then be like, oh, no, you did drugs, you're horrible. Like, why are we doing this, guys? Is it the skin tone? Is it complexion for protection? Is it really, like
that complexion for protection really be working for the majority culture.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I get it. I hate hearing us kind of want to throw the book at somebody and say without even considering other factors, because it's like, oh, well, they did wrong, so they need to pay. And it's like, well, there are a lot of people that do wrong and they don't get caught. The reason that they don't get caught is because the people that are doing the catching aren't surveying and looking for them in the same way that they're looking for people that look like us. So we kind of gotta, and even if it's not people that look like us, it's people that have like a certain level of income or from certain communities and like, or that live in certain areas. Like, yo, this is,
yeah, it's amazing how many people are able to slip through the cracks. I think about what just happened in Texas and how the man was able to slip through the cracks. And I'm just like, how did he get like AR-15, was it?
Yeah.
How did he get that with so many restrictions? I'm like,
a history of so many problems, and it's like, okay, yeah.
He just slipped through the cracks and did so much devastation. And I'm like, that wouldn't have happened if he was African American. And also what wouldn't have happened if he was African American, or if he was brown from the Middle East. Mental illness wouldn't have been the cause of this devastation. It would have been terrorism and not mental illness.
In order for us really to get somewhere, for real, we got to stop picking and choosing when we want to use mental illness. I remember the guy that shot the police officers in Texas, and that they end up using a bomb to like blow him up, right? And I remember people wanting to have the mental illness problem, and it was a black guy. People wanted to have the mental illness problem, but then it became like, oh, he's been radicalized before, and he made a choice, to do these things. And this isn't mental illness because he thought this and planned this out. This was something that, they found that, that they found like evidence of him planning out, I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to get this place, and I'm going to shoot this way, and I'm going to figure out, like, he planned it out, and he put a lot of thought into it. So it was like, oh, it can't be mental illness because of that. But then in this situation, it's like, oh, well, let's have the mental illness debate. And it's like, yo, mental illness is not just based on what your race is. And truthfully, we're never going to get anywhere when it comes to addressing true mental illness when we or our government leaders, our leaders in the country, pick and choose when we want to have the debate. Nobody ever wants to talk about, gun violence. Nobody wants to talk about how people are able to get access to certain things that can do so much harm to people at once. But we want to have the mental health debate when it's like a certain type of person. Then other times it's kind of like, oh, well, this was just a bad apple. And it's like, yo, we're not going to we're not all taking this as serious as we should. And even honestly, as constituents, as people, we aren't taking it as serious as we should too, because then you'll hear people say, oh, well, I really do think that mental illness played a factor in this. It's like, yo, even if it did. So let's have that conversation about every time and every person that we have this with. And maybe mental illness should be linked to guns. Maybe mental illness should be linked to your ability to get access to certain types of weapons.
Yeah, because he was banned from getting a handgun. They wouldn't let him get a handgun, but he got an AR-15.
Right.
Now, wait a minute.
Because that makes all the sense in the world. It's just all...
I was they were like, oh yeah, it is a loophole. We got to look at the loopholes to these gun laws. I'm like, you think? How was that not even in the conversation when the law was implemented? How was a handgun not accessible, but a AR-15 was?
Right.
Like, where's the thought process in that? So I don't know. Y'all let us know what y'all think about Mimosas and OJ today. Let us know what you think about Tyrese. I'm sure most of y'all are drained like we are. The election, Meek Mill. Let us know. #ChatBC on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We would love to interact with you. We'll be back with our main dish. All right, we're back with our main dish. Well, today's main dish, we're talking about something that we both can relate to, and I'm sure y'all can relate to too. Caring that stresses you out. You ever cared about a person and you cared so much that they begin to stress you out? Let me tell you, a carefree life is a blessing. I don't even, I've had experiences, especially in college, with friends, and I cared about their decisions. And so much till I started being like, you know what? I don't think you should do that. Get them advice. We cool. We lead a conversation. They gassed up. They ready to implement it. 2 days later, they did the opposite. And now I'm frustrated. I'm up all night. I'm praying, crying for them to get it together. And they still do what they want to do. And in turn, and then do what they want to do, and then get mad at you for trying to help them. So you know what? I try not to care, and it's hard when you really care about people.
Right.
I try not to bring new people to care about that much. That's where I'm at.
That'll fix it. Keep them on the outs.
Keep them on the outs. Everybody, I already care too much about the people I already am close friends with, family members. I don't need to add any other things, because there's certain people you get them advice, they don't implement it, and you be like, oh, okay, well, I mean, that's your life.
Yeah.
I pray for you. I hope you be well. Right. And then there's certain people that their decisions like really affect your heart, and you be trying to figure out how you can help them. So it stresses you out. How's it been for you?
So absolutely, I can definitely relate to this in so many ways and so many levels. This is actually a thing here recently that I've been trying to like find a good balance in, because I think that's the trick to it. But it's really frustrating for me. It's not so much frustrating that a person makes a decision contrary to like what I've suggested. That's really not the bigger thing, because I think I always go into conversations with like, hey, for me, I vent to people for, insight, for advice, for feedback, or just kind of like to work through something. And at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to make the decision that I feel is best. However, the frustrating part for me comes in when you come back with the same issue or the same problem or the same complaint that initially got us to this place to have to talk about this. For me, that's when it's like, and maybe not once, maybe not twice, maybe not 3 times, but once we start to exceed that, then it becomes, yo, you are doing this to yourself. I can't be mad at the other person. I can't be mad at the outside factors or forces. You were responsible for this. It's your fault. You are doing this. And maybe I can give a little understanding if it's something like maybe somebody's dealing with a level of addiction or something. I don't know. But like at some point in time, it's like, yo, you got to take responsibility and ownership for this. And so for me, when it comes to like being stressed out about caring about people, it's that type of thing. And one thing that I'm recently learning or really being able to acknowledge for myself is that like, when you kind of take on the role of supporting somebody through something or walking with somebody through something, I start to realize that like that very thing, it kind of becomes a part of your life too, right? So like when the person gets upset because they were wronged, you kind of get upset because they were wrong. Like you kind of feel like you were wronged as well. Like, yo, this wasn't, you know, this person, if it's a situation where it's like between 2 people, it's like, yo, that person was wrong for doing this to you. They shouldn't have did this or they shouldn't have said that. But then you have to start recognizing that like people will treat you how you want to be treated. And so if the person that you're close to is allowed themselves to kind of be in that situation, then you kind of got to take a step back, because that stress of what they're going through will continue to eat at you. It'll continue to be a huge problem, and something that becomes unproductive for you. And so, yeah, I'm trying to learn. And actually, this has kind of been like my past like couple weeks of trying to learn to find that good, healthy balance between like, hey, I'm here for you, but then I'm also can't be that invested, because once I get that invested, I start to have like these expectations that like, we talked about it, so you got what I was saying. So even if you make a decision that wasn't what I suggested or what I thought we agreed upon, you'll walk away from that situation knowing that like, well, I just kind of got to eat this one, take this L and move on. But now I got to come back and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. It's like, wait. We talked about this. We discussed this. We knew that this was a potential outcome. Like, what are you doing? Why are you here? What are you doing?
Yeah. And I don't mind doing that for certain people, but I think we have to limit the amount of people, because I have moments where I need to have conversations over and over again, and friends tell me you shouldn't do this. So I've been there. I've been that person several times. I could be that person still now, but I just can't do it for a lot of different people. It's just, I have to cap it.
It ain't healthy. It's not healthy for nobody. Honestly, no.
Because we all get like that, but it's like, I gotta cap it. Like, I can't be that invested in that many people to give that much energy to it, because I'm never gonna get rest.
And you have no control over their actions too, right? So you'll be so. Yeah, I feel like it's probably maybe like 3 people. It's like the max, and that's I think I can do 3. That's 3 people that's not going through the same. For me, that's 3 people that's not going through these.
Oh, they can't be going through the same thing.
Yeah. At some point in time,
I could do a work relationship as family member, like, you know, somebody going through with their family, somebody going through at work, somebody going through with their boo, or a friend. I could do that. I think that's a good number.
Yeah, I've actually recently, I've become very careful. Yeah, I've become very careful, especially people that are going through relationship issues. So I have one person in my life that's going through an extreme relationship issues, and what I started to realize is that I became open.
You talking about dating or regular relationship issue or friendship relationship?
No. Like, we're dating, like we're in a relationship.
Oh, okay.
And I'm dealing with one person that's going through like a relationship issue, and I ain't got room for nobody else, because what that does for me is it makes me say, I just want to be single for forever. F it all. I don't care. I don't like these are the headaches. It's too much. I don't understand why people put themselves through this. This don't make no sense. And people are like, oh, well, you know, you have somebody that's there for you all the time and all this other stuff. I was like, well, that sounds great, but these people are they're completely lonely. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds great, but the folks that I'm dealing with are going through real stuff, and they feel completely lonely in that. And they actually are married to somebody or have been dating them or in a relationship with them for years. So it operates like a marriage. That's not, I don't have time for it. So
Yeah. And I've for my last experience trying to help a friend with relational, it just went really not good. So what I've adopted is what my grandmother told me. You cannot compete with pillow talk. So when people come to you with all kinds of drama about who they dating, just be a springboard and let them say what they want to say. But realize they're not going to listen to half the stuff you say, because at the end of the day, if they're engaged, especially on a sexual level with the person, you can't compete with pillow talk.
Grandma
You
is
cannot.
such a wise woman. Grandma.
You might as well just shut up, because you can't compete with pillow talk. So when people come to me about somebody they're dating, especially if they're sexually engaged or if they're
I was
married,
just about to
you
say,
cannot compete. You just might as well shut up.
Yeah.
Nothing you say matters. Even if you give them good advice and they say, yeah, I'm gonna listen to you, they're not. So just shut up and mind your business and pray about them and let God do it, because you can't do nothing.
Yeah,
There's nothing
I'm a
you
firm
can-
believer in. There's two things that you'll never outdo: the peen and the puss. You're never gonna outdo them. You just have to say, you know what? All right, I'm not competing with those, because at some point in time, somebody's not gonna get it. Like, they're not. No. Those things are very powerful. And so when you're working with a friend or being there, you just gotta realize, yo, I'm not competing with that. I'm not finna like go against it. I'll give you my opinion, but if you don't accept it, if you think it's right, if you think it's wrong, just let it go. Like, all right, it is.
Yeah,
what it
you
is.
can't be emotionally invested, because it'll suck all of your energy, because that's just that connection with them is you're not, even if you're saying something that's logical, like don't do this because obviously this is happening continuously, you're not going to be heard. Like, you're just not.
Yeah.
You're going to be heard for the moment, and they're going to be like, yeah, thank you. And then tomorrow they're going to tell you the exact same thing, and you're going to be frustrated, and then you're going to be trying to help them. And just don't get sucked in. Just realize, hey, this is what's happening right now. I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to keep it moving.
And
Because
it's not a bad thing. I think that's the thing. So I think this is how people get sucked into these types of situations. We always feel like we have to be there for everything. And I say we, because I'm that person. One of the things that I've been working through with myself is like realizing that I have this very like, I got to be there for you. I got to be there with you. We got to be in the thick of it. If you go through it, then I go through. If we're close, if you're a close person to me, then like what you're going through, when you're going through it, I'm going through it too. And I want to be there. I don't want you to feel alone. I don't want people that I love to feel alone or feel like I don't have their back. So for me, it's like, yo, let me do the work for this. Let me be a part of it. And then I start to realize that like, I feel bad if I don't do that. But depending on what the situation is, you just have to let that person do their thing. You do. And it's like, it's no love lost. It don't mean that you're a bad friend or a bad person, but it's saying like you're protecting yourself. You're protecting your own sanity and your own ability to keep moving and to keep pushing. Because I think we guilt trip ourselves, and it's like, oh, well, I'm not being the best friend that I'm supposed to be, because I'm not in this situation. And maybe the person guilt trips you too. And it's like, I feel alone in this because you're not there for me. And it's like, hey, look, I can be here for you as a sounding board or as a source of advice. But once you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, what you have to recognize is that the only person that you should want to drag down is you. I got to be strong enough to be able to pull you back up, but I can't keep getting into the thick of this, arguing with this person, defending you for something that you are going to continuously go back to. Like,
and then what's going to happen is that you, once they get weary of you saying truth to them, they're going to turn on you.
I just told you, the two P's, you can never go against them. You really can't, like, for real. And
they're going to turn on you. It's going to be, and you're going to be like, what the heck? I was just trying to help you. And then you're going to be out. You're going to be like, lost a friend. And you're like, how did I lose you trying to help you?
I literally thought it was just, I used to always think that it was like, that happens when like, with like my women friends, like, you know, oh, they, you know, you can't ever say, cause I've had early on, I had a situation with a friend of mine, and like one of her boyfriends didn't like me. He actually didn't like any guy that she was associated with that wasn't a family member. Right. And he was just like, you know, yeah, whatever. And she didn't express it to me initially. I met the dude. I was like, hey, you know, because my thing was always like, I never want to make a situation uncomfortable. So like, if you got a boyfriend, you start dating somebody, like, yo, we cool. So I don't mind meeting him, trying to figure out like, you know, what we can like, what similarities we have, what ways we can connect on, and just kind of be like, hey, that's cool. So, you know, I kind of acknowledge you and yada, yada, yada. Well, dude just was not messing with it at all. Just, I don't like him. Well, her response to me became kind of like, oh, well, I don't talk to you as much. I can't talk to you as much. Or like, I remember she had like a birthday event or something like that, and I wasn't invited. And I was like, dang, like we kind of always celebrate each other's birthdays. And she was like, oh, it wasn't that small, yada, yada, yada. But what happened was her boyfriend was there and he doesn't like me. So she just didn't do it. And I was like, dang, that's kind of, you know, women kind of always do this thing. And then lo and behold, I had a situation with a homeboy where it was just like his girlfriend just felt like he shouldn't be hanging around dudes that are single. And, you know, if you're in a relationship or you're trying to work towards marriage and your friends they're not working towards marriage, and we're like in like, maybe I was like 25, 26, you know, you're hanging around dudes that's single and they're not trying to find a wife now, then, you know, you don't need to be around that. And so old boy was just like ghost, like complete Casper. And I'm like, bruh, we used to always hang out. Like, what's going on, man? Like, where you at? Oh, you know, things are just happening, man. I'm just been busy with work and yada, yada, yada. 6 months later, they break up. Oh yeah, she didn't like you. She didn't like y'all. She said that y'all weren't like trying to, y'all weren't out here trying to find your wives. And so you guys were a bad influence. And I'm like, dang. And so,
but y'all still, what the crazy thing is, the relationship still came to an end. Even though
work. Still fizzled out. And I just, and so for me, cause it was real, cause he and I actually clashed a few times, because he alluded to the fact that like she had some issues, cause we used to hang out. There's like a group of us, right? Guys and girls, we used to hang out. But sometimes, you know, it's like 4 guys. We would still like just get together and kind of do our own like guy thing, hang out or whatever, talk, laugh, whatever. Right. And we kind of made it like we would invite him and be like, hey, bring your girl, the new girl. Like to us, she's the new person. She should be a part of the group too. So bring her along. She would never come. Oh, she has to do this. She has to do this. And I was like, yo, is she not like feeling the group? Is she not feeling girl? Cause in my mind, she has to like feel some sort of way about the girls in the group, right? Like, she got to be upset with the girls because maybe, I don't know, she don't vibe well with them. He was like, nah, she's just more of like a person that's to herself. And then he was like, you know, she thinks that couples should hang with couples. What? Like, yo, we've been friends for years. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't, what? And then he's like, yeah, you know, she's just like, she just believes that her parents never hung around. Her parents, they gave up all their single friends once they committed to each other. And it's like, well, what kind of situation do they live in? Because so what happens if one of their like friends in a relationship got a divorce or like broke up? Like, did they just give up on them too? Like, what, how does this, what's this logic? But from that, I say all that to say, I realize it's dudes too. Yo, there's 2 things you just can't compete with them. You're never going to be able to compete with them.
And I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think what you said is like people get into these situations with these sense of, I have to have this. So nothing else matters but this person, and will totally reckless abandon every other relationship they have, which I get it. I understand that. I've been in situations where I'm like, that was stupid. So we all make dumb decisions. But I think it's best I've learned not to put too much stock in friends who are overly committed to the friendship and then when they start dating somebody, they abandon you in the midst of it. So,
Yeah.
Make these declarations. Oh yeah. I had a friend, he was like, yeah, whoever I'm with, if they not down with you, then we can't, cause you've been there through thick and thin. And then lo and behold,
Oh, the lies. Oh, the lies.
So not that I, fault him. I just understood that even when he said it, knowing his behavior over the years and how he is with women, I knew it was a lie. I knew that he really wanted to, in his heart of hearts. I just knew that he didn't have the capacity to. So when the shift happened, I wasn't necessarily, I was hurt a little bit, but I just knew that was an unrealistic declaration when it was made.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you have to just, even when people make these outlandish declarations about we gonna be together to the end of time and you my home, I think you have to just take stuff with a grain of salt when people say stuff like that. When people make declarations about friendships and relationships, you just kind of just be like, you know what? Don't even put that out there.
I told people to stop lying to me. I don't believe in that bullshit no more. No, for real. I'm sorry. I don't. I just stop lying to me. Only because I have this thing. Me and one of my friends were actually talking. We actually talked about this not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has this thing of it's interesting how you can talk to your exes and you have this thing of I still want to do stuff, or oh, I saw this and this reminded me of my ex and so I sent it to her, and he's like, I don't, let it go, move on, I don't understand what your problem is. And I'm like, no, there's a level of, he was like, so if your ex called you and was like, hey, I need something, you probably, if I needed money or something like that, I need help, he was like, you'd be the dummy that would be like, oh yeah, I'll give it to you. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, so for me, here's the thing. I felt like I said that I love you and I want to be a part of your life for the rest of your life. For me, that means, and I don't make that statement to everybody. I don't, because I feel like it's a lot. That's saying a lot. But for me, that means whether we're together or not together, to whatever capacity that we both can manage, I want you to know that I got your back, I support you. So, if you're in a whole completely other situation and something was going on, but I had something that I can do to help you out as a person, I want to be able to do that. And so we kind of made that commitment or pact to each other. And for me, I don't say that to everybody for that very reason. I don't say that to everybody because I realize that's a lot to say. That's a lot to sign up for. And when you sign up for it, you're committing to it. You got to be committed to it. It's not like I feel this way just because we're in a relationship. That's yo, if you do me dirty or I do you dirty, there's going to be a period of time that we probably just going to have to get over it or work through it. But what I want you to know is that I will always love you. I will always try to do my best with what I have to at least help you out or to see you doing good. My friend was just like, yo, you stupid. That's dumb. Nobody does that. So when people say that, because I realize too that people say that stuff just kind of in the heat of the moment or because it sounds good or it's oh, this is what I'm supposed to say. I'm like, I don't believe that crap. I don't believe it because you just saying it because you've been watching too much This Is Us and you feel oh, they're going to be together for forever. That's not it. No. You don't say that junk if you don't truly mean it. Shut up.
Yeah. And I think they mean it at the time. They want to mean it.
Yeah, I was gonna say they want to mean it. That's not. They don't mean it at the time. They don't even know what it means. And I've had to check myself too. You don't know what that means. And in one situation, the reason that I kind of still try to at least maintain some level of commitment to that statement is because I felt like I said it not knowing what it meant. that meant that if this person completely hurts you, if this person completely like just messes you over, you're saying that to the best of your ability, you're going to still try to have their back or still like try to find the good in them because you love them. I ain't trying to do that for everybody. I'm just not. Like, I'm not trying to do that for everybody. Not everybody that I date, everybody that I meet, every friend that I have. I'm really not trying to do that. Nope. So I'm not saying it to everybody. I'm just not.
Yeah. And that's funny because I think that's something that happens like as you get older. You start thinking about the vows and commitments you make, and you're like, why did I make that? That was dumb.
That was real
like
stupid.
I'm never gonna be able to live up to that. And so I think that's why I'm very slow with the words now, with titles on people, all these declarations, because I really just believe that sometimes we talk more than we think, and it's just like, you know, in this moment, you're a great person to me. You're amazing.
Stop telling people that you never gonna hurt them. That's like like in general, but fellas, please stop telling folks that you're never gonna hurt. That's a lie. It is a bold-faced, flat-out lie. Like, and I had to,
or when you date people trashing their ex for the ways in which they hurt them, because it's like you might do the same thing, or you don't even know what factors went into that situation that caused that response.
You are going to do the same bullshit, and it's just it. So shut up. Like, it's just.
Yeah,
I remember having to realize that, like, I can't believe he did that. I'll never hurt you. I'll never do that to you. 2 days later, well, shoot. And sometimes it's like you do stuff without intention, right? And so you even in terms of, because my thing became like, my modification of that was I'll never intentionally hurt you. And then I was like, you know what? That's a lie too, because honestly, I was intent upon, you know, flirting or going to this other place or doing this other thing. And like, yeah, I was intent upon doing it. I wasn't intentionally trying to hurt you. But at the end of the day, once you are hurt, it's not about like what I intentionally did. It's really just about what I did. And so it's like, yo, just stop saying it all together. Hey, I'm going to try my best not to hurt you, but I know that I am going to hurt you.
I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah, I know that I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to try my best not to, but I know that I'm going to hurt you. And that's just a part of life. That just is what it is. When people are like, oh, I'm tired of being hurt. Well, you just are tired of living, because you are going to be disappointed and hurt. That's life. Like, it's going to happen. You just kind of have to start learning to deal with and work through those things and understand that you have some non-negotiables of like, this level of, I'm not going to, like, this level of hurting, I can't accept. I don't accept this. I completely reject this. But there is a degree of, like, quote unquote, being hurt that just kind of is going to happen. And I just kind of got to deal with it and, you know, move on. Like, it just kind of is what it is to some degree.
Because anybody who tell you they're not going to hurt you, run.
It's a lie. I'm telling you. It is a whole lie. So when it comes to self-care, when it comes to just kind of being stressed out just in general, like, we say all this just for us, because I feel like many times as we talk, we kind of like preaching to ourselves.
Yeah.
But like, just understanding that there's a fine line between like caring so much for somebody and showing up all the time, and also needing to like take a step back and realize that it's okay. And people might call it selfish. People may call it like you're not showing up. But I feel like if somebody's situation or problem is kind of sending you through a rat race of emotions, and like confusion, and it's causing you to kind of like not be able to live your life. And it's a situation that you don't even have, you're not a part of, so you don't have control of the outcomes. You kind of got to take a step back, and it's okay, because it shouldn't be stressful to care and love somebody all the time.
Yeah. And I think you have to assess people's patterns, because one thing I did, I had a situation where I had to, you know, take a break from individuals, but I think the only regret I have is the way I did it. But at the end of the day, I think I needed to do it. Mm-hmm. And I needed to do it because I realized that this was going to create a pattern of dysfunction for my life.
Right.
Like, if I tried to interject myself in the situation. Like, it was just going to be really, really dysfunctional.
Right.
And I was just like, you know what? I'm already going through my own stress and drama in my own personal life, trying to grow a organization. I don't need this. You and this person, be well. And
That's it.
Be well.
That's
And
it.
maybe at a more mature place in life. I don't think I'm mature enough to handle this situation. I don't think y'all are mature enough to handle it. So let's grow in maturity apart, and maybe later maturity. But right now, it's just gonna be too much.
Fantasia said it. There's no time for it. Want to tell me how it is? There's no time
And
for
so
it.
I think you have to assess different patterns people have, and just see what's coming and see how it's gonna go. And instead of like trying to interject yourself in it, remove yourself from it, and then just grow. And maybe at a later date you can be joint, but just understand that if you notice that people have certain type of patterns, you notice that this behavior is going to continue. So
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be aware.
Completely agree. Well, y'all hit us up. Let us know what y'all think about the main dish. Let us know if you've been in a situation where you have been stressed out, or honestly, if you are in a situation where you've been stressed out about caring about somebody or somebody that's close to you, and how you deal with it. I'm truthfully asking because I'm open for some tips of what I can and need to do in the situations that I'm in, and trying to find a good balance of loving somebody, and also loving myself. So hit us up, use the hashtag ChatBC. You can also make sure you hit us up on Twitter at Brunch Culture, and on Instagram at Brunch_Culture, and we'll be back for our Toast to Roast. All right, we're back, and it's time for our toast or roast. I'm kicking off this week with a toast to Mr. Chadwick Boseman. If you guys aren't familiar with Chadwick Boseman, I'm sure that you've seen Jackie Robinson. He's played Jackie Robinson. He played James Brown in Get On Up. He also played Thurgood Marshall in the most recent movie that's out now, Marshall, which I have yet to go see. But so you've seen him a lot. You probably just don't know his name, but he is also the star in the Black Panther. He's playing the character. He's playing Black Panther. I believe the character's name is like Chala or something like that. But I'm toasting to him this week because just as an actor, and like the way that he decided to approach the role. So he actually speaks with I believe it's a British accent that he has. It's like his natural accent. And in him not using it, he talked about just kind of like developing a new accent specifically for the role of Black Panther. And he talked about the need of doing it is because Wakanda, which is where the world in which the characters in Black Panther exist, they've kind of like this technologically advanced society that has been separated, and they were never colonialized. They were never taken over, by Europeans and influenced by Europeans. And so in his mindset, I need to develop a type of accent that shows that there's that whole colonialism and that whole idea of like being subjected to like what the white world standard is something that this character has never experienced, and the characters throughout the movie have never experienced. And he's actually the leader of Wakanda, and so he's like, it's more important for him to make sure that he can maneuver outside of the realm of that reality, which is extremely hard to do because across the globe, we are all affected by that in some way, shape, or form, especially here in the US. And so it's like, if he's portraying a character that existed in a world where that never happened, and they kind of been isolated from everybody else and able to build their own things and have their own success and do their own things, then he just, even in the way that he communicates and he conveys the messages of the character, he has to do that in such a way that it shows that he's free from that. So I thought it was just really dope as an actor. And I'm not sure if that's something that he was kind of posed with when he signed on to be the character, if it's something that he developed himself. But I think either way is dope. It's dope to kind of take on that as an actor and to be able to talk about that beforehand, knowing that people are going to go in with the expectation of, now I want to hear how he sounds and I kind of want to critique it. So you've kind of signed yourself up for that critique, but even to just kind of publicly talk about how important that is and to really acknowledge that this movie, Black Panther, while it is just a quote unquote, just a superhero or comic book movie, there's so much that goes into the character and so much meaning behind what he's doing, and him just kind of accepting the challenge and moving forward with it. I think is dope. And I'm, of course, really, really, really excited to see this movie. Probably too excited to see the movie. I have all kinds of plans about what I'm going to do, but I just want to toast to him because we see him playing all of these different, like, black figures and black people. And these are black people that come from, the US, and as opposed to kind of taking a position of just kind of like, hey, I don't want to understand their plight and their story in depth. Like, he's really doing that. And I know Black Panther doesn't come from there, but it's like he really is. And I know he understands as he has experience of just being a black person in the global world. So I know he has a certain experience, but him just kind of being, because even being a person that's quote unquote woke, I think there's a certain level, there's certain types of experiences that are just different. And so they can be similar in the terms of being oppressed or, you know, having, just kind of a negative experience in general, but you also are just very like clear and considerate of trying to acknowledge this specific experience and trying to be true to that specific experience and acknowledge the ways in which it's a little it may be a little different or the same to your own personal experience. And so I just want to shout out to Chadwick Boseman. I think that just reading the article about him doing that, it gave me like an immense amount of respect for him as an actor, and it just made me 10 times more excited to see the movie Black Panther. So y'all will hear me talking about Black Panther a number of times. Toast to you, Mr. Chadwick Boseman, and yeah, that's my toast.
Awesome. Well, I want to toast to Julian Turner. He's a student at Morehouse. He did a video in biology class. His professor said you can make a video out of anything for extra credit for biology, and he did one, and it went viral. And he was on Good Morning America with his professor, and she was really impressed. And I think he took Lil Uzi. I don't know who these rappers like. Uzi. These newer. Oh, Uzi. I'm sorry. Song.
That's all right.
Tour Life, and changed it, and he was like, all my cells are dead if my genes go left unread. I don't know. It was like, oh man, I wish I would have had that song in biology class. I probably would have did better. So toast to Julian Turner for being so creative, and I think creating something that probably could help students in his class that were probably struggling with those concepts. It's right. Amazing when you hear stuff in a song and how it sticks with you versus just your professor lecturing or you reading it in a book. So shout out to Julian Turner, and I just think it just speaks to Black creativity and the ways we're able to bring things to life to help people is amazing. So shout out to him.
Dope. And so this week we are going to leave you guys with a good vibe. This week's good vibe is very simple, but it falls aligned with what we talked about for our main dish, and what honestly I think is just something that we all need to hear. This week's good vibe is self-care is how you take your power back. Self-care is how you take your power back. I actually saw a friend post that on Instagram, and I just think it speaks volumes to something that we have to acknowledge, right? Like in whatever situation that you're in, whatever that you might be drained, stressed out because you're helping somebody, or just kind of like, you know, life has become a lot. Work has become a lot. The news and media has become a lot. Social media has become a lot. Whatever that thing is, the real way that you truly take your power back from it all is to care for yourself and to do self-care and to be intentional about self-care and doing the work on yourself that you need to do. So let's make sure we keep that in mind and don't forget that and do that. that wraps up another week of Brunch Culture, guys. We thank you so much, as always, for listening to the show. You guys are still rocking with us, and we appreciate it. We appreciate the feedback that we've been getting, people emailing us and people hitting us up and letting us know what they think and kind of responding to the things that we're talking about. That's why we do it. That's what we're here for. Make sure that you hit us up on iTunes. Leave us some reviews. We haven't had reviews in a while, so we are asking you guys to take like 2 minutes or 2 seconds out to just go and leave a review. Let us know what you think. Your reviews allow us to petition people to get some sponsorship so that we can keep the show going. So do that. Leave us reviews on iTunes. Subscribe to our show. Interact with us. Hit us up on Facebook. We're at Facebook.com/Brunch Culture. We're on Instagram at Brunch_Culture and on Twitter at Brunch Culture. And remember, we have a nice website that our very own put together. Miss Lisa V put together us a good website at www.brunchculturebc.com. So hit us up. We out here. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, here at Brunch Culture, everything is up for discussion.